do you think is the first step of spirituality? Necessarily promote myself or the course, but people who will join the course, they will have the answer to this question. Information that I reveal in this course has never been revealed before. The highest knowledge that a person can access is what we discussed right before, right? If you think about the saint in Mount Athos.
Could you talk to me about, is there any cool stories you can possibly share from Mount Athos? Talk to me about your Fachi experience when it comes to Fachiing and stuff. Like what level would you say you are if you were comparing yourself to Mopai standards or Mopai levels? Is that possible to answer?
Stories of saints, you levitate, you teleport, you bilocate, you make, light from your body, fire, whatever, right? But that is a spontaneous arising from this process of purification. And it's not a technique, right? It's not something that you try to do and sit and cultivate your dantian and, and compress the energy into your dantian and move it through your channel, That is a different kind of energy. And then we keep on going through the jungle. And then he's like, stop. I'm like, and he's like, now look at your right. And I go like, oh. And he's like, do you see the red leaf? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, you see this leaf is the same leaf as before, but the one before was green. This is the red one. The red one, the spirit of this plant does not allow normal people to see it. Only shaman can find this red leaf. Move you, without touching you, and you would go like, oh, boom, and fall down. About shamans in Russia and so on and so forth. And he told me, I know this shaman, and he's the last living shaman of this tribe. The Northern Lights are a reflection in this physical world of our ancestors in the spirit world making a fire.
Yeah, is there any cool paranormal experiences that you can share from like Chinese masters that you came across?
Those typical things of those Chinese masters that you have seen as well in the famous videos.
Are your experiences with Master Zhang pretty similar to any other story you've heard pretty much?
Have any necessarily other relevant stories to add to what you already know about those masters?
Obviously, Master Zhang tragically passed away. I heard from Rudy that it was during a healing.
Don't play around with these things, unless like if you're doing it seriously. Don't play around with it, unless you have proper guidance. Master Zhang directly himself, but I did practice with, some people that come from that lineage.
Oh, excellent. Okay. There's another famous individual I perhaps forgot to mention. There's Master Joe. Do you have any personal experiences with Master Joe as well? And have you practiced under his system since we mentioned Master Zhang? If you don't mind answering this question, what is your take on Mopai?
Talk about my relation with Mopai.
Gotcha. I understand you. Could you tell me about your experience with the Leaf Man and what that was like? Okay, so today we are here with Mr. Igor Mikhailov, and I am super excited to have him today. He is a Neigong practitioner and a world traveler, and to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about him. We have a mutual friend, and I saw one of his very cool video a few years ago of the Indonesian healer, and I've always been curious about this guy. But recently, thanks to my to a mutual friend we have, I was able to get in contact with this awesome individual. So I'm super, super honored to have him today. So Igor, could you tell me how your spiritual journey began?
Well, thank you, Ken, first of all, for having me. It's a pleasure. After we met already on the phone virtually, so very nice. But my the story could go on forever, but to cut it short, uh, describing maybe the elements that are more interesting for you. It's a very common story. I mean, I began with practicing Chinese martial arts as a kid. Many people got into Chinese martial arts maybe in a generation before mine, like through Bruce Lee. I got into that through Jackie Chan. So I remember, when I was a little kid, I saw Rumble in the Bronx, this Jackie Chan movie, one of my favorite Jackie Chan movies, and then in a part of the movie, he says, "This is called Chinese Kung Fu." And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I want to do, And so I found this Kung Fu school, and then, I started practicing there, and it was a very good school. We had a lot of practical classes, but we had a lot of theory classes. And, I would constantly listen to these stories, of the ancient masters who were able to do this and this and that and all these superpowers. And they had these secret practices and special techniques through which they, were able to achieve these incredible feats. And then eventually, especially with YouTube already afterwards and so on, of course, I stumbled across some of the very famous videos that you perfectly know what I'm talking about. Of course, back in the days, there were not so many videos available as you have now, but, those few that we had, and when I saw them, I was like, wow, all this stuff that I heard about this master, it's real. I mean, in the video, what I see. So I developed this very strong obsession. So my goal as a kid was, I want to go to China, and I want to practice in China, and I want to find masters who can do this. And if I can find them, well, then I want to study with them and practice with them. And so then eventually this is how my journey began, and I never stopped traveling ever since.
Very cool. Okay. Obviously you're known as a Nigong guy in this field. You recently came out with a course and stuff. Yeah, so could you tell me a little bit more about your Nigong experience?
About my Negong experience. Well, I can tell you I can tell you a funny story of sort of like how my journey began in Asia, and this is very funny because I was a teenager when I left, and I had no experience. The only thing I knew, I was practicing this style of Chinese martial arts, this Hongken, and I knew that there was this master in Hong Kong who was the successor, in the genealogy of the style and the lineage, who was the living successor, and I wanted to find him, and I knew his name, but I had no idea how to find him, So I went to Hong Kong. I was staying, as a teenager in the Chungking Mansions, the crappiest accommodation place in Hong Kong. Everybody knows about it. And so I was roaming around Hong Kong trying to find this man, until eventually I got dragged into a sort of like a brothel, and I didn't know it unknowingly. I just wanted to go for a massage, and instead it was like a brothel, And eventually, there I met a guy who told me about this man, and it's like he found me the address. Not that he knew him personally, but maybe through the Chinese Hong Kong, the internet. He found the address of the guy, and I had this piece of paper, with the address of this master, and my hands were trembling, like when you see the girl of your dreams. My hands were like this, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I was so scared, and so like, okay, it was afternoon. I will never forget, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take a rest. I'm gonna sleep, and then tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and and I'm gonna go and see this master. And that's what I did. I tried to sleep, and then the next day I went to see this master, who didn't accept me as a student. But because it was my first experience, I didn't know how to approach him properly and how to say the right things. And so he sent me to another master, and that master sent me to another master, and so I met a bunch of people, and that was nice. That was a good networking. And then from there, eventually, I ended up in mainland China, and I was living in the Wuda Mountains, or the famous Wuda Mountains. And I was living there for quite a long time. And then, I was, as a character, I've always been a bit of an eccentric guy. I always have to bother everybody and annoy everybody with stupid questions, especially, of course, as a teenager. So as I was living in Bhutan, every time I had a day off, I would go around and I would go to all the other Kung Fu schools, and I wanted to meet all the masters, and I wanted to meet all the students. And then after a while, of course, because I spent there quite a long time, everybody knew me and I knew everybody. And the people who were there already for quite a long time back then, which was unusual compared to now, then, after a while, I was sort of like, I was not entirely sure, nor entirely convinced that I wanted to spend that much time there and be like that. Not in a negative sense. I deeply respect those people for the immense effort, they put in their training and in their commitment in every aspect of what they did. But I wanted that something more that I saw in those videos, that I heard in those stories. I wanted to experience that. I wanted to see that. And just the physical aspect of it was not enough. So eventually, through a web of networking, I ended up going to Indonesia. And as I arrived to Indonesia, immediately I get introduced to one of those people, one of those masters or healers, however you want to call it, that had those powers. As soon as I got there, because that was the reason why I went, right? Somebody basically called me up and they said, oh, listen, if you want to experience this, you have to come to Indonesia right now. So I left everything in China and I flew to Indonesia. And there I was laying on the bed of this healer who touched me. And for the first time in my life, I feel this energy going in my body, this electricity. And the first thing I did when that happened, when I felt it for the first time, I just cracked laughing, man. I was laughing and I could not stop laughing. I was just like, not because there was anything funny in the experience, But because for so many years in my mind, I I just was, charging and charging this obsession, with meaning, with significance, with expectation, with anticipation, and everything, you can think of. And after so many years, when I felt it for the first time, I was so shocked. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. So I was just laughing. And it was an incredible experience that back then, and we are talking about many, many, many years, was definitely opening. It did open a door for me into another world. And then from there, all the other stories, and meetings with all other masters and all these other people who have these incredible abilities, it came after this first experience. It was like the door open. Incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. Igor, I want to go back a little bit. So I don't know a whole lot about you. Where are you originally from? Are you from Russia, I'm assuming? Or somewhere in that region?
Um, yeah, actually, I was born in Russia, in St. Petersburg, but when I was 7 years old, I moved to Italy.
Oh, interesting.
Uh, So my parents divorced, and my mother moved to Italy, and then she took me along, and so I grew up in Italy.
Oh, interesting. Okay, okay. Well, yeah, okay, very interesting. So you speak Russian as well, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah.
oh,
I mean,
okay, so you
uh,
are trilingual. Maybe you speak like Indonesian as well as Chinese, I'm assuming. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
probably speak various different languages, I'm assuming.
yeah. I mean, my father and all the rest of my family, they basically are in Russia. I've always kept going back to Russia, as a kid, twice, 3 times a year. Then maybe when I was a bit older, once a year, but I would always go back to Russia until, eventually when I was a bit older and I was already deeply involved in this whole subject, I became much closer to Russia again because, let's say, shamanism as a cultural phenomenon. Of course, yeah, anthropologically speaking, there are many debates about where it comes from and so on. But one of the um, origins that are normally attributed to shamanism, for example, is Russia, it's Siberia, right? So I always wanted to, and not it's not only about the shamanism. I mean, uh, Russia is an incredible place, spirituality wise, So I always wanted to reconnect with that part of my own culture, of my own country. And, eventually throughout the years, I spent quite a lot of time with many great Russian teachers and saints and shamans. And I had quite a few memorable experiences there in Russia that all these, Asian masters is like nothing in comparison.
So you said that there are nothing in comparison to Asian masters. Did I understand you?
No, no, no. I mean, just when you normally think of these incredible teachers uh, as a stereotype, right? You normally would think of some Asian, right,
Right.
master, some Chinese guy, or some sort of like Pai Mei look-alike, you know. But it's not. They are not just there. So
They're
even
in
in a
Russia
place
as
like,
well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite an incredible place.
Right. With that being said, Igor, you mentioned shamans and stuff, but um, recently I came across someone who is from Greece who has connections with monks in Mount Athos, and he was telling me some like incredible stories. And I also heard from various other sources as well about monks that possess like really high level abilities and such. And I don't even want to call them abilities; they're just on another level, spiritually speaking. I heard that are in these Orthodox concentrated regions like Romania, and in Greece and stuff. And I've been hearing incredible stories recently. I also heard from this individual that I spoke to that in Russia, there's also possibly a very strong Orthodox concentrated area, and in these regions, there's some really high level teachers. And when I say high level, I mean I can't speak for Russia, but like from what I've heard from Mount Athos, I've heard some crazy stuff. Like there's like seven. I don't know if I can even share this, like the seven, monks that are supposedly immortal and they can teleport and go invisible and things like that. Now, these are just stories I heard. I don't know if they're true or not, but yeah. Do you know of any Russian, like maybe Christian people that are like high level by chance, or have you
Oh,
heard?
absolutely. And this is what I've been just telling you. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to reconnect with Russia and and my origins. It's because of that reason. Mm. So it's an incredible place for that. And of course, a place like Mount Athos it's a, it's an incredible place. I go there every year.
Oh, you do?
It's,
Okay.
yeah. It's a wonderful place. It's just has a special spot in my heart. It's
Oh, interesting.
um,
Could you talk to me about that a little? Sorry to interrupt you, but could you talk to me about, is there any cool stories you can possibly share from Mount Athos? And yeah, could you share?
I can share so many stories, from Mount Athos, but um, I can share with you if you want one story that happened in Mount Athos. This last time I was in Mount Athos in around July, I guess, um, because Mount Athos is a fairly big territory, and it's not easy to move around Mount Athos. So when you go there, you have to apply for this special permit that is normally given for 3-4 days, and then once you're there, you can extend it for a few more days. But of course, there are exceptions and everything. Let's not go into that. But you can literally go to Mount Athos if you, let's say, go once or twice a year. You can go there every year for your entire life, and every time discover something new. So it's an incredible place. And so when I was there last time, and then I'm sharing with you this story because this is something that I think it's important and interesting to know, especially if you're interested in all this subject of powers and cities, and so on and so on. And so I'm with a friend, and we go to visit this hermit. So we hike, and we get to this little hut, and there is this very old hermit living in the hut. He can barely walk already, or like this. But already when you're there in the presence of this person, already wow. And then he told us, if you keep on hiking down the road, you will find the hut of another hermit who unfortunately passed away, but that was his place. And he was a great saint. So with my friend, we go, and we enter into this little hut. There is a little chapel inside, as normally all of these huts have. And so there is now a monk living there, taking care of the place. And so he showed us around, and then he was sharing stories of the saint who lived there, the Saint Paisios. And the Saint Paisios, he was known for being a great healer. So once a father goes there with his son because his son was sick. And so this Saint Paisios, he, from the authenticity of his heart, from the pure prayer, he praised God to give him cancer to heal the kid. So imagine how powerful, how authentic, how deep and pure that desire must be for you to have that wish. So if you're talking about powers, right, that is something that is like, wow, wow, I bow to you, not like, yeah, sure, you can do all these Gong practices for years and years and years, and maybe you develop some ability, but you are not on that level of heart, if you know what I mean.
Did this kid get healed by this?
That I either don't know or don't remember how the story ended.
Oh, interesting. Okay, but the moral to the story is there's some monks there that are really righteous and really pure in heart, and I like I said, I heard some incredible stories and stuff, and I some of the stories I heard maybe I shouldn't be sharing for reasons for obvious reasons. I do want to, I obviously respect the integrity of these amazing individuals that are living there, but yeah, Igor, do you think sometimes we get a little too caught up as like cheap practitioners, like like I'm certainly a victim of this as well. I get too caught up in techniques and wanting to learn specific techniques so I can get stronger and get advanced and stuff. I mean, but do you think it's far more important to focus on being pure and righteous and things like that? You think that should be the foundation to all this?
Well, it is I could talk about this forever. One interview is not enough for sure, but
okay.
let me ask you.
Yeah.
What do you think is the first step of spirituality?
Wow, that's oh man. First step. Wow, that is a tough question to answer.
It is a tough question to answer, right?
Wow, first step. I mean, first
and
step.
and this first step of spirituality is the longest and the hardest. For some people, it might take a lifetime. For some people, not even one lifetime is enough. But if you get at least a glimpse of it, you are already quite blessed.
Wow. What, if you don't mind answering, what, in your opinion, what is the first step?
Well, I mean, I if I had to put it into very simple words now, just to give an idea of what I'm trying to say, is just to understanding what spirituality is. And that's it. Because, you run after practices, attributing to these practices meaning of spirituality, right? I sit, I cross my legs, I close my eyes, I meditate, and I focus on something. I focus on my dantian. I try to do something with my energy. It is potential, right? It's something you can do, but it doesn't necessarily have any connection to spiritual development, right? So if you want, I can share with you a story of one of my great teachers. And this teacher of mine comes from the tradition of yoga, right? So it's not from the Chinese Gong, it's from Indian yoga. And I don't know if you are or have been much into yoga.
I'm not. That's the one field that I'm very ignorant in. Yeah.
Okay, it's not a problem anyway. Normally yoga, when it's discussed, is normally given in a sequentiality, let's say, of 8 steps, right, of progression, where the last step is samadhi. Samadhi, right? So so my this teacher of mine, he used to say, as a human being, with this tool and this tool, you can only accomplish so much. And that is, you can get through the progression of these steps of yoga until the step before the last one, until the 7th. The 8th one, samadhi, you cannot do. You cannot achieve it as a human being alone. And so I think this word that is important here is alone. You cannot do it alone. So what then becomes important is, let's say, this grace, divine grace. A grace from God, divine grace. How do you acquire that, right? There is no technique. There is no technique that grants you divine grace, right? So that is the real then path, right? And it's your heart to reconnect back to your original question, how righteous you have to be, how moral, how ethical. Spirituality is the one hardest thing a man can do in his life. There is nothing harder, and yet is the simplest thing. It's so simple, but it's so difficult.
Wow, that is a very profound thing you just said there. It's the most difficult thing you can do, but it's the most simple. Yeah, I mean, maybe perhaps, I often hear from many teachers, many traditions, many religions that it's all about maybe removing the ego. I'm a very, I have a lot of attachments I want to accomplish. I want to become successful and stuff, but maybe, I'm like, swimming against the current, maybe, sometimes I feel like, and maybe I just need to just, instead of trying to go upstream, I need to go the other way sometimes. But I don't know, just I don't know, I guess it's okay maybe, because really I'm just a podcaster. I'm not maybe taking this stuff, spiritual stuff, too serious, but I don't know. But maybe at some point in my life I have to make a decision to, instead of trying to go upstream towards like success and abundance and like, materialism, I go the other way and towards being monk mode, so to speak. So
Everything in life has its right time to be. So it's everything is good. Everything is good.
yeah, I truly appreciate that, Igor. You're a very wise person for being such a young age. I mean, if you don't mind asking, how old are you?
I'm 33.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, excellent. Very cool. If this is personal, I don't have to ask. You don't have to answer this question, but I mean, you traveled a lot. It sounds like how did you afford to travel? Like, what do you do to make a living for yourself?
Oh man, this is a very tough question to answer, because for every single adventure, let's say, I had in my life, there is a different a different way that I managed to somehow do it. Sometimes it's, yes, by saving money doing something. Sometimes it's because somebody was very nice to me and somehow allowed me to do that. So many things, so many things. It's like there is no one answer to this, because for every single adventure I have a different answer. It's a story for everything, really.
Yeah. I briefly looked at your Facebook. So you just kind of like work odd jobs or maybe teach spirituality here and there and save up money, but primarily throughout your adulthood you just traveled and traveled primarily. Am I understanding that correctly? Or
Well, I mean, yes, I do travel all the time. Mainly, I am though based in Bali, Indonesia. But yeah, I mean, I'm always traveling somewhere for different reasons. For example, at the moment I'm in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand. I'm gonna be here for a few more days, then I'm going somewhere else. But uh, there is always a reason, you know.
Very cool. Okay. Speaking of Thailand, I saw on your Facebook profile. I mean, we mentioned we have a mutual friend in V who also practices Muay Thai. I saw a photo of you, like, with uh, bandages on. Do you personally practice Muay Thai or?
Well, I did practice quite a bit of Muay Thai as well. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager and I was involved in the martial arts, I wanted to try everything. So my main thing was the Chinese martial arts, but then I was, trying a bit of karate and Muay Thai, and then spending time in Thailand in some Muay Thai camps, training there. I had I had quite a lot of those experiences.
Excellent. Okay. Has doing things like Gong and like these spiritual practices helped you become a better martial artist in your opinion?
Well, I mean, what do you mean when you say martial artist?
Well, I mean, has it allowed you to kick harder or punch harder and things like that? Or are they two separate things in your opinion?
I mean, they are separate for sure, and you can find a common ground, if you really want to. But I mean, it sounds to me too like overimposed. It's I can't really say for myself, that I was able to kick harder because of some Qigong practice. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, maybe that's an irrelevant question. Yeah. So I want to go back into Nigong. And this is, I mean, if I don't ask this, my audience will definitely get upset at me. So I'm gonna ask this more Nigong related questions. Obviously, you are you're not like a super famous character in this field, but I mean, like, you are known amongst some of the really hardcores, if you will, amongst those people. I mean, excuse me, you are known to be close to the Leaf Man. I forgot how to say his name. I'm kicking myself right now. Could you tell me about your experience with the Leaf Man and what that was like?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to say that I'm not close to the liftman. I
I
mean,
apologize.
it's like um, we know each other, and that same video that you saw, for example, on my YouTube channel with the healer. The reason why I decided to upload that video once on my YouTube channel is because I wanted to I wanted to use that video as a test. I wanted to see. I uploaded a video already quite a few years ago, and I wanted to see if that video eventually would end up in some of those, let's say, online groups discussing the subject. And as a matter of fact, it didn't take long time for the video to be in one of those groups. And so then, I started reading all the comments that people started writing underneath. And it just makes me laugh, because I mean, some people came up with stories about this man. I was like, what? How does that come from? Whatever, whatever. And so that is just a funny thing I wanted to share. But then with the Leaf Man, something very similar actually happened because, of course, following, willingly or unwillingly, some of these online groups quite a few years ago. I mean, of course, this video of the Leaf Man appeared online. Then immediately it was discussed in some of those online groups. And so, because there was some interest in it, I said, okay, well, let me film a short introduction video course to the practices of the Leaf Man. And so I did. And I sold the course to literally 3 or 4 people. And immediately after that, the video got leaked online and was public everywhere. And so that's when I closed my course. So that was basically the story with it. And it's been quite a few years now.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it is. Just want to say 2 things. I mean, definitely stupid rumors do float around. I mean, like, and I, unfortunately, I mean, me as a relatively, public individual in this field, I mean, maybe I perhaps have contributed to, not in your case whatsoever, but like in other cases, I know what you mean. Like, unfortunately, rumors spread, spreading stuff, and they're stupid sometimes. And obviously people have shared stories as well and caused some chaos and problems in the past for me as well. So I know exactly what you mean. Like, stories, rumors can definitely be problematic, and they definitely spread. And sometimes I have similar experiences where I'm just going, what just happened here? This is so weird.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I never said this, or this person never said this, but it's still taken out of context. So, yeah, I certainly know what you mean. So I definitely understand. So it can definitely be frustrating. So that's why I try to really make sure that if I mention people's names or mention practices, I really honor them and just show the utmost respect because these people need to be definitely respected, and so
People online have a very different identity. If you would meet them in real life, that's not the way how they actually
yeah,
talk or act.
absolutely.
So I mean, when it's online things, you just have to have to look at it positively and laugh about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I myself am not like, I mean, I try to stay true to myself as much as possible. Like if I'm like angry, I say I'm angry. If I'm sad, I say I'm sad and stuff. Like I try to not hold back about what's going on in my life. But I mean, some people say like, oh, Ken, you're such a nice guy, whatever. I'm like, I'm just a human. Like sometimes I'm angry and stuff too, So yes, I know what you mean about people are very different in real life. I've had those experiences as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing about the leaf, man. That was a very interesting thing that you shared with me. Let's now talk about Fachi. I mean, obviously, that's another topic that people just love to discuss. Like people are, I mean, whether it's a good thing or not, people want to know about Fachi. People are all about Fachi. Personally, for me, I don't, personally care that much about Fachi per se, but it's just what people want me to talk about a lot. So, could you talk to me about your Fachi experience? First of all, I guess I gotta ask you, can you Fachi?
Well, if you first of all talk about the Fachi experiences, I already shared with you before my story with when I experienced it for the first time. And answering your other question, well, you have seen some of my videos.
Yeah, the stories you shared on Facebook, the clips.
You've seen some of the videos, so you have the answer, and that is the stuff that I discuss in the course that I recently released. So everybody who is interested in Fachi, should definitely get onto the course for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, and his course will be in the description. So if you guys are interested in getting into his course, it's in Telegram, if I'm not mistaken.
At the moment, it is in Telegram. The process of accessing the course also is a bit messy. It's not automated yet. I am still working on a lot of stuff, so everything will improve due time, and I will also improve the course and create much more content, and then from there discuss many more aspects of that word. But yeah, I mean, the course itself is already available, so it's something that I wanted to create already quite a few years ago, and I was discussing it with a good friend of mine who also is in this field, and we were talking about it, and he said, don't do it, don't do it, because this information cannot be revealed. And so I didn't, and quite a few years now have passed, and as I was recently again talking to the same friend of mine, and we were talking about this again, and we came to the conclusion that now, with everything that is going on online and in the groups online, Facebook and YouTube and so on and so forth, and all the Gong groups around, we thought that it was a good thing, to release this and create this content now. So that is it.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. So, so I want to ask a little bit more about Facci, if you don't mind. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sure, go ahead. Ask anything you want. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So, when it comes to Facci, I mean, obviously John Chang, Mopai, I mean, he's obviously the most well-known person for demonstrating and displaying that on the internet. Um, I'm assuming you're not at like his level, right? I mean, when it comes to Facciing and stuff, like what level would you say you are if you were comparing yourself to Mopai standards or Mopai levels? Is that possible to answer? Or is that not an appropriate question?
It's I don't think it's an appropriate question. It's yeah,
Gotcha.
there
Okay,
is
yeah.
no way. Yeah, there is no way to answer that. But again, I really don't want to necessarily promote myself or the course, but people who will join the course, they will have the answer to this question.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, okay. So a lot of people can expect to know a lot of secrets of uh from the course, it sounds like. Maybe I can ask you this. What are some realistic expectations people can have when they join your course? Um, can they possibly do Fachi in a certain period of time once they join your course and start doing your practice? Do you know when they can exactly achieve Fachi once they start doing this particular practice that you're sharing in your course?
You see, the thing about Fachi and consequentially the thing about the course is that you can experience Fachi in a number of different ways. So one way you can experience Fachi is by knowing absolutely nothing about it. Like you have never been into Negong, you've never been into this field, and maybe some guy just invites you, like, oh look, there is this Chinese master, he's gonna do this something, just come and try. And you're like, oh, okay, sure. And you just go and you have your experience, and that is one experience, right? But if you are, for example, a person who for many years has been interested in Fachi, interested in energy work, energy emission, and you've been cultivating this obsession, cultivating this idea, a certain, how to say, expectation, anticipation, and you've been somehow also prompted to it by your teacher. It's like, if now, okay, I will take you to see this Chinese master, he can do this thing, and if you feel this, that means this, and this means that, and you're prompted to a certain kind of experience. The moment the master touches you and projects this energy into you, your experience is going to be totally different. Your perception of it is, the, you're going to be mind blown in a totally different way. Some people who are not interested in this at all, when they experience it, they do not even perceive any magic in it at all. They're like, oh, okay, whatever, So it's like the ways you can experience Fachi has, comes in different ways. But you see, for sure, if you experience Fachi as a practitioner, as I mentioned just earlier, who is, who's been cultivating this obsession, Or if you, for example, are a person who has, let's say, a certain medical issue, and you experience this, the the impact, the psychological impact of the experience plays a significant role in the totality of the experience. It's not just the experience itself, right? So the thing with this course is exactly the same. Like I it's not that I can't tell you because I don't know. Of course I know, but I cannot tell you what people should expect from the course and so on and so forth, because I need an element of, when you see this, you go like, wow, what was that? And that switches something in your mind and it changes something. And that is the most valuable part of the experience. It's not the course itself, it's not what you can get from the course. It's that. I hope this answers your question.
Interesting. There's other Nigong teachers out there, wonderful Nigong teachers out there in the online space. They came up with a school name, like, just to throw out names, like, some people call it, or like Mr. Mitchell calls it Lotus Nigong. There's Rudy with Authentic Nigong, and there's Nate Qigong. Like you're from Italy. There's wonderful people in Italy over there doing their stuff. Are you coming up with a school name eventually? Is that underway, or?
Eventually, yes, because as I mentioned before, I am working on improving the whole experience of it, the platform, the website, everything will be available at a certain point in the near future, which I eventually want to integrate with not only this kind of course and courses, if I will put more courses online, but maybe organizing some trips, group trips to travel to some interesting places together, which I think it's a much more interesting experience than, doing some course online. And you can travel together and experience things as you travel.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you for answering that.
So yes, I do have something in mind, and it will be ready pretty soon.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think you'll rub shoulders along with the other amazing Nigong teachers out there very soon, and I'm truly honored to be the first person to really expose you to the world in the spiritual field. So I'm truly honored to take part in that. So that's really cool. So are you are you looking to, like, what is your business goals? Like, are you looking to have a certain number of students? Do you want to, really take your business ventures really far, or do you want to keep it relatively small? Like, could you describe your business goals?
Are you referring to this course?
Or just your course and just your school?
I mean, look, if we talk about this course, it's it's for those people primarily who are in this field specifically, Negong, and especially who are interested into, Fachi and energy mission and so on. So it's primarily dedicated to these people. So I do not necessarily have the aim of acquiring as many people as possible, because it's It's a very niche thing, and it's not for everybody,
Right.
right? So, um, yeah, I mean, it's mainly for these people, and of course, I hope that then there is also like a matter of um, price, because as you understand, this information that I reveal in this course has never been revealed before, right? So it has a certain, how to say, price that is still an early bird price. And if I will have enough people joining, I will create more content, because the course as it is now, it is complete in terms of covering the basics, but there is so much more to cover. So I mean, eventually, if I get enough people, I will cover much more, create much more content, for which I will also need to do some traveling, because I will be including some masters, some healers, and sharing also their sort of like a view and their experience. And I will eventually keep expanding it in all sorts of directions, covering this field from all points of view, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the idea, basically.
I mean, you mentioned information that's never been revealed before. If you don't mind asking, I mean, this is a kind of a dumb question, maybe perhaps, but so, you know, to your understanding and knowledge, do you think this is possibly the highest level of knowledge that people can possibly access?
Well, not not even close, not even close, because the highest knowledge that a person can access is what we discussed right before, right? If you think about the saint in Mount Athos, for example, well, that is a that is a different level.
I mean, I'm so sorry for asking such a stupid, like childish, question. But I'm just gonna use, once again, John Chang as an example. I mean, I obviously am a big fan, and he's obviously, a legend, and he needs to be respected. And I have the utmost respect for John Chang. But, like, do you think the monks in Mount Athos are perhaps more spiritually developed than perhaps individuals like John Chang? Maybe because they're more devoted to the spiritual practice, perhaps? Because obviously John Chang had other responsibilities in life, as opposed to monks in Mount Athos are just, more dedicated to like purely just.
Well, I mean, comparison is the thief of joy. Why compare?
Right, yeah, that was a stupid thing. I shouldn't have compared.
I mean, yeah, this is what I said before, right? The Gong, this energy work, energy practices, anybody can do, right? But to be a truly spiritual individual, that is something totally different. And that is something that has nothing to do with Neigong or with a specific technique. So then, if you think about it from a different point of view, if you think in terms of like energy, right? Because of course it's a subject that you like very much. So where does energy come from? It's a mysterious question. So you can use this one model of understanding energy. For example, your ego, right? Imagine your ego as, although it's something abstract, right? But imagine your ego as is held together by a nuclear force. It cannot come apart. It's very difficult. It's very, very hard. These molecules, these atoms, that hold your ego together, they are so strongly bound together, they cannot separate. So you need something like you need to trigger a process like an atom bomb, some chain reaction that manages to, break this bond. And by, this release, a lot of energy is generated. So if you look at it from this point of view, a spiritual person, and again, I repeat, a spiritual person, so not a person who practices Gong, not a person who practices energy, because that is nothing spiritual about it, but a truly spiritual person who is truly purifying themselves, their mind, their heart. Eventually, through this deep process of purification, when the ego starts to come apart, a lot of energy comes out, right? And this energy can come out in many different ways. So it can manifest in all these ways that you normally would, would see in the stories of saints. You levitate, you teleport, you bilocate, you make, light from your body, fire, whatever, right? But that is a spontaneous arising from this process of purification. And it's not a technique, right? It's not something that you try to do and sit and cultivate your dantian and, and compress the energy into your dantian and move it through your channel, That is a different kind of energy, right? I don't know if I've explained myself correctly.
No, you certainly did. I think that was a wonderful answer.
Mm.
So yeah, thank you for that. Igor, I want to ask you this. I've recently brought on a very mysterious underground individual who's a Neidan practitioner. From your perspective, is Neidan and Gong different? I heard various different opinions about this. I heard some individuals say the terminology should really be distinguished. It's all the same thing at the end of the day. But some people say it should be Neidan is more like, for enlightenment, Gong is more for like faching and stuff. I heard various different opinions. What is your opinion? And how and since you met a lot of these masters, how do the Chinese masters view this subject?
Man, I think honestly, it's it doesn't matter. It's just most of it, especially nowadays, is just marketing. It's just marketing. It's like Gong, Neidan, and you look at look at Wing Chun, the martial arts. You have Wing Chun, Wing Chun, Wing Chun, Wing Chun, all changing the letters or changing it for marketing purposes, right? But I mean, of course, then you can go more into detail, but I'm just throwing it like that as an example. like, why does it even matter? Why does it
Right,
even matter?
right,
Like,
right. Right, and it's just sort of interrupt you, but sometimes was it? Well, I'm not going to say the person's name, but one renowned Nigong teacher, I think, was saying, I was watching his interview and he was saying, like basically some people use the word Nigong because it just sounds cool, so it can attract students. Like, oh, okay, there's Nigong. I want to, learn Nigong. So like, I'm going to Google and okay, there's a Nigong school here. I'm going to sign up and, learn Nigong. But if you use that word Nigong, it just seems like it's cooler and it sounds better than Qigong, perhaps. So, and then nowadays maybe perhaps like Nadon is making that, come in a light now where people are gonna maybe start using that term Nadon, like, hey, we're more advanced now, Nadon, perhaps.
I mean, you see that for sure. If you are somebody who is, let's say, not a total beginner, but let's say if you are somebody who already knows a bit of the terminology and so on, and you see in front of yourself, let's say three courses, three something, Qigong, Neigong, Neidan. I mean, I'm pretty sure you would almost automatically attribute to Qigong, something that is more like a soft gymnastics, and you're moving slowly, and Neigong, you're mostly, sitting in stillness and maybe meditating, and Neidan, maybe you're trying to achieve some crazy internal alchemy process, So, I mean, there are these for sure attributions that automatically, I mean, are there as a form of a bias, basically, right? But ultimately, are you actually practicing or are you actually doing anything, Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only thing that matters, right?
Right. Yeah, no, well said. I mean, because I know of, teachers, that are teaching basically quote unquote Neigong or Neidon, but they don't call it that, and and they're just saying like, hey, this is the results that you get. So they maybe these terminologies are not too important, perhaps. So yeah,
Look,
that is definitely
when I first began my kung fu journey as a kid, I remember one of the first thing they taught us was the Chinese sort of like this greeting, and so every time you would walk into the training space, you have to respect your training space, and every time you would go out, same. When I went to China, I've never seen that once. Not a Chinese teacher told me to do that once. It sounds like, it's, of course, I mean, it's individual and there is a lot of individuality in it. And I think the most important concept to understand, and this is very important, is the concept of, actually, I'm gonna film a video for my YouTube channel on this subject very, very soon in the next few days. You have to understand sex, masturbation, and spirituality. Sex, masturbation, and spirituality. But why do I say that? Because you see, normally you would use, like, I'm not going into details, right? Let's say that you use masturbation as a replacement for sex, right? And in the spirituality is exactly the same, right? Like, when you cannot get that fulfillment, that satisfaction that you're looking for spiritually, whatever that means, you start to masturbate, you start to mentally masturbate. And you know how masturbation works, right? I mean, you think about this, then you think about that, then you think all possible different scenarios, all possible of different everything, and you have to make the scenarios more and more and more and more complicated every time. And this is the same thing, So when you don't get that spiritual satisfaction, fulfillment you're looking for, you start to mentally masturbate. And you're like, oh, it's this Qigong, it's this Neigong, and what about my Dantian, and how full is my Dantian, and is it at 50%, and what level am I? Am I level 4 Mopai? And when am I going to be able to Fachi? And what if I meditate inside the pyramids, because the pyramids were made for this connection with the universe, and how were the pyramids built, and who built them, and what about the giants, and what about the UFOs, and you start to mentally, that is all your mental trip. It's all a mental trip. And this is why the very first thing I said is, what is the first step in spiritual development? And it's understanding, trying to understand as much as you can what spirituality really is. And it takes forever. It takes so long.
Yeah, well said. That is so true. And yeah, what you said, I can definitely resonate with as well. I want to ask you a little bit more. In your system, do you guys value the distinction between yin and yang chi a lot? Or is that not really important?
When you say in my system, what exactly are you referring to?
So in your teachings, are you talking about distinguishing yin and yang chi?
Let's say if you're
cultivating yin chi in a certain way, cultivating yang chi in a certain way. Do you talk about that in your system?
So let's say if when you say my system, you are referring, for example, to this course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
When you're referring to this course, no, it's something that is there, but it is explained in a different way, right? But because this is just one course about this one specific subject, right? But in other practices, in other teachings, I sure explain the differentiation between yin and yang and how they manifest in the actual practical aspect of the practice. Yeah. So yes and no. Yes and no. It depends what you refer to. So yes and no to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for answering that. I want to, just so my audience don't get mad at me, I want to hear more cool stories from you, if it's possible. So you mentioned Siberia, we mentioned Mount Athos, we mentioned obviously China, in Indonesia. Is there any other place you met? Maybe have you gone to South America or something? Or I'm trying to think of other regions. I don't know.
I mean, for sure. I mean, there are so many stories, and because this Chinese, let's say, subject was at the beginning of my journey, but then I explored so many different things and all over the place. And I did explore quite a bit of course, South American traditions, and mostly for the use of psychedelics, and but my heart primarily is always in Asia. Asia is where I feel closer to. So in Indonesia and India, of course, throughout the years, my view and my take on these things has changed a lot. So the way I experience it now, and I perceive it now, it's very, very different, and I feel so blessed for or the way I am able to understand these things now, you know. But I mean, if you want cool stories, I have so many cool stories, man. I wouldn't even know where to start. But I tell you, I tell you something funny that just comes to my mind right now. If you wanna hear it, of course.
Oh, I mean, like I want to hear any cool story.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Sorry.
define cool. Paranormal experiences. Could you share paranormal experiences?
Okay, so I share with you a couple of interesting stories that are sort of like um, connected temporally in terms of like sequentiality of events. um, so I was it's many years ago already. I went to Papua New Guinea to look for shamans in Papua New Guinea.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Papua New Guinea. Is that in the oceanic area? I'm so bad with geography. Sorry.
Yeah, it's right east of Indonesia and right north from Australia.
Oh, okay. Yes. So sorry for the interruption. I just wasn't sure where that was located. So yeah, sorry for that. Can go ahead.
Yeah, you know, Papua New Guinea, also known as PNG. You know, one of those countries in the world that is like very, let's say, unsafe from a certain point of view, or at least what's normally attributed. I never had any bad experiences, but so I was in Papua New Guinea in near a city called Wewak, and I was sort of like roaming around the jungle looking for shamans. And so eventually, you know, I meet a guy and he introduces me to another guy and the usual story of networking and connections. And I end up in this very remote village. It takes about 3 hours hiking from the main road, sort of like to get into this village, to this shaman. And, you know, he was very nice to me. He prepared a room for me with a mosquito net because, you know, there is a lot of malaria in Papua New Guinea. So he made this nice mosquito net for me, and they prepared a beautiful, beautiful dinner. His wife, and so then the shaman takes me into the jungle, and he's showing me plants. Right? He says, "Oh, look at this plant. It's like this green leaf," and it's like this green leaf is called, and he tells me the name. He says, like, if you cook this leaf in a certain way and you give it to somebody to drink, it will cure any illness. And then we keep on going through the jungle. And then he's like, stop. I'm like, and he's like, now look at your right. And I go like, oh. And he's like, do you see the red leaf? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, you see this leaf is the same leaf as before, but the one before was green. This is the red one. The red one, the spirit of this plant does not allow normal people to see it. Only shaman can find this red leaf. And so he tells me, if you touch with your skin, you know, this leaf, you will get burned for 2 or 3 days. That's how strong this, you know, urticant this leaf is. So he said, if you collect these leaves and you as well cook them, you know, a few drops in somebody's like food or drink, and you will kill them. It's like for black magic, you know. And then he shares with me this story. He says, if you go with a shaman like myself into some very remote areas of the jungle where no white man has been before, and the shaman covers your entire body, you get completely naked, and the shaman covers your entire body in these red leaves, except your eyes, and then the shaman will leave you to die because, with this very strong urticant properties, you will go into anaphylactic shock. And as you are on the edge between life and death, these magic dwarfs of the forest will appear and will save you. And they will take you to this, they will take you to their world, and they will give you teachings. Right? So this is just a funny story. And then, as I was with this shaman in Papua New Guinea, I didn't really have internet connection, only barely here and there sometimes. And so once I got internet connection, and I received a call from a shaman in Siberia while I was with a shaman in Papua New Guinea. So on the opposite side of the world, basically, And he tells me, why don't you come and stay with me for a few months? I'm like, okay, I'm coming right away. So I left Papua New Guinea, boom, flying over to Russia. I'm in Siberia. And I go and I stay with this shaman. How did I come across this shaman? This is another story, Years before that, I was practicing in Russia with these two great high-level masters of energy. So they were masters of energy, but not coming from a tradition of Qigong or Chinese tradition or any Eastern tradition, They were coming from their own, they had their own background, that was not related to the East. And especially the man, it was a couple. And he was much older. And he had some of these incredible, let's say, skills and abilities of manipulating the human energy field. So, you would stay in front of him and he would just move you, without touching you, and you would go oh, boom, and fall down, And or you could tell him your name, and he could wipe out the clouds, and write your name in the clouds with his finger, with the energy, with projecting his energy, right? So phenomena like that, and quite an incredible person. And once we were discussing about shamans in Russia and so on and so forth, and he told me, I know this shaman, and he's the last living shaman of this tribe, because Russia has many ethnic minorities, about 200. So, and he was the last living shaman, and I went there to stay with him, and man, I wouldn't even know where to begin the stories from there. It's just like you imagine this place in the northern part of central Siberia, where there is absolutely nothing, zero, nobody living there, zero, literally people, except this one hut where the shaman lived at the end of this massive lake. In the middle of this area that has the surface of England, and nobody is there. Can you imagine? And so, I was until I was there for quite a few months with him, and he was sharing, so many stories and so many teachings and knowledge, and this is a whole different podcast. It's just incredible. Also because he didn't really have any students. He had, wife and son, and I think, with me, we are the only people who actually, because he passed away a couple of years ago, we are the only people who actually remember his stories. It's just something out of this world. And until late July, the sun would never set. It was 24-hour sun, and then throughout the whole month of August, although the sun would already set, but you'd still get like a dusk, a twilight. Never dark. And then in September, when it finally got dark, and it was dark every day, of course, then at night, we would get northern lights every day, every day, if you were patient enough to wait for it. And so, and this shaman, he comes out of the hut and calls me up, and right in front of this wonderful lake and this beautiful mountain on the other side of the lake. And imagine this very powerful green and multicolored northern lights reflecting also in the stillness of the water of the lake. And the shaman would say, okay, now I'm going to ask a question to the spirits. And if the answer is this, the northern lights will shape like that. And if the answer is this, they will shape like that. And so then he would go in his state of trance, and he would ask this question to the spirits, and you would look at the northern lights, and it would just like shape into this incredible thing. It's just so wonderful.
Am I getting the story correct? So essentially, the shamans are able to influence the northern lights.
It was just this shaman, he had this this way of communicating with the spirits, right? It's a way of communicating with the other world, because in the view of that ethnical minority, the northern lights are a reflection in this physical world of our ancestors in the spirit world making a fire, right? So when he is communicating with the spirit world and with his ancestors, right, that is their response. So it's beautiful, to not just the effect, but the symbology, the meaning behind it, the story behind it. I could tell you so many stories, from the, it's just, of course, every story would need an individual podcast, but wow, it's incredible.
I mean, if you want to come on every week, I mean, like, I'd be more than happy to. I mean, you're such an amazing person. You have such an amazing story to share. So I'd be totally open to that.
Because you always have to learn to look beyond, right? When you see these things, you see a master performing something, you see a teacher doing a fachi or an energy mission, yeah, sure, it's cool, but what lies beyond it? What does it mean? So when you start to look at these things like that, you will start discovering something much more valuable than the effect itself, than the technique itself. There is much more.
Wow. I mean, you're obviously, within our small field, you are known as a, Qi guy, Nigong guy, but from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like, it's the shamans that you came across that really have the, these magical stories. It sounds like, am I correct on that?
No. I mean, I just shared a story, for the beauty of the story, but I could tell you, so many stories like that from every tradition I researched in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't, if you don't mind, if there's like stories that you can share from like Chinese masters that are paranormal, that'll be cool. Yeah, is there any cool paranormal experiences that you can share from like Chinese masters that you came across?
Well, Chinese masters. Well, the first things that come to my mind, just like that, are for sure those typical things of those Chinese masters that you have seen as well in the famous videos. Like the masters doing Tai Chi and doing their diagnoses and all those kind of things. Yeah.
Okay,
I
excellent.
mean, I mean, those are things that you have seen in all these videos. So, I mean, the only reason why I wanted to share with you a story, about, the shaman from Papua New Guinea, the shaman from Siberia, it's just to give a bit of variety to it. Because otherwise, what do you want to hear? Yeah, a Chinese master, took my hand and projected energy into my arm. Sure, yeah, it's again, what is beyond it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, so it sounds like sounds like like the Chinese masters. Obviously, they're wonderful, but um, they are obviously known for what they do, which is like mostly the fetching, the diagnosis, the Chinese medicine and stuff. Like, I guess that's their field of expertise, and that's what they are known for. And they're not maybe as flashy as the shamanic stories, perhaps. Um, I mentioned John Chang. There's another famous individual from China, which is Master Zhang. Have you ever came across Master Zhang's communities or like his system throughout your
Yeah, of
travels?
course.
Are they
Absolutely, of course. Yeah.
is Master Zhang very famous there? I'm assuming, or is it just in the West that he's famous?
Well, I mean, it's famous in the amount of famousness you know him for, I guess, right? I mean, I guess who is in the Negong sort of like Fachi communities nowadays? Pretty much everybody, knows Master Jiang and has seen the videos of Master Jiang. So I mean, yeah.
Are your experiences with Master Jang pretty similar to any other story you've heard pretty much?
Well, I mean, Master Jiang and let's say all the other masters that come from that lineage, right? Which I had more experience with because Master Jiang has, passed away. But I mean, sure, I had those experiences, but again, it's the same thing, right? It's this thing that you see, in the videos. Maybe some things are a bit extra here and there, but you know, I don't have any necessarily other relevant stories to add to what you already know about those masters.
Gotcha. Okay. Obviously, Master Jang tragically passed away. I heard from Rudy that it was during a healing, unfortunately, and stuff. Very unfortunate. Speaking of that, could you? Or sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, you get on the course and you will understand.
Oh yeah. So speaking of that, I mean, obviously there are dangers associated with these high-level energetic practices. Um, have you heard of any horror stories, or like, have you heard of any dangerous side effects that came from these practices? And do you also personally have any experiences with quote unquote kundalini sickness, or there's different terms for it, like yang and out, or qigong insanity. There's different terms like overload of energy type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you, of course, because you did put more questions into one, so, but yeah, definitely I had, because you see the problem is that when you approach these teachings and these masters, they very often it happens that it is almost given for granted that you are not going to do the work, you're not going to do the training. So for example, you are passionate about John Chang, so you know that Lawrence Blair is the man who filmed The Ring of Fire and who filmed John Chang, and so many people looking for John Chang, and while on the other hand, Lawrence was asked by John Chang himself if he wanted to be his student, and he declined because what, like, do I need 20 years of everyday practice for hours and hours to achieve this basic, result? It's not really worth it. So, but on the other hand, you see, sometimes if to achieve a certain skill, it requires, I don't know, 8 hours of practice every day for a number of years. Let's be honest about it. Who can do that? Almost nobody. Almost nobody. Right? But you will always find that one crazy individual, who will do it. Who will do it. And that individual, of course, is not taken into account. So sometimes it's almost given for granted that you are not going to do the work, right? So even if I give you a practice that has some dangers, you most likely will not experience any of those dangers, but you will not really experience not even the benefits in terms of like the actual effects you are looking for, right? Because you need a very rigorous discipline and training, right? So if you do it right, you get the result, you get this effect, you get the skill. If you do it wrong, you get the side effects, right? So to answer your question, yes, I personally do have that experience, and I did play and compromise my health quite a bit with these practices and my energy channels, and I had some weird stuff going on in my body that is not very good, not very healthy for you. Absolutely. So don't play around with these things, unless like if you're doing it seriously, don't play around with it, unless you have proper guidance.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't agree more. I used to heavily do like telekinesis and like with like little psi wheels and stuff, and and it just eventually got me to the point where I was like like, man, this is not making me feel good for some reason. Like
Yeah.
yeah, and so like then I started to seek like proper teachers and stuff, and I kind of stopped doing a lot of that stuff. But now with some proper guidance, I can do it to some degree, but it's something that I try not to mess with a whole lot and like not get in a whole lot into anymore. But me as a content creator, I do have to practice just a little bit, just so that I can kind of upkeep with my viewership and some of the other people in this field. So I do have to do some practice just for the we talked about marketing earlier, just for the quote unquote marketing purposes, perhaps. But that's a whole separate story. Yeah. I want to go back to more stories. Because I do want to wrap up this interview soon.
Yeah.
So you're in Thailand currently, right? Isn't there a well-known Negong teacher there as well, if I'm not mistaken? Maybe I should mention his name. Maybe it's not appropriate, but associated with the Italian group. Are you affiliated with their system and that particular master, or
the Italian group? I'm not affiliated with the Italian group in any way, shape, or form.
So sorry, you cut out. What did you say? I couldn't hear you.
I'm not affiliated with this Italian group, no, in any way, shape, or form, no.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah. I wasn't unaware.
I just want to put my phone on charge. That's why I moved.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no worries. Okay, very, very cool.
But I mean, sure.
But
there are quite a few. There are quite a few. Let's say famous teachers in Thailand, of the famous ones. Yeah, sure. But I mean, I'm not here for that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. But you did practice under Master Jang. Am I correct on that?
Not under Master Jang directly himself, but I did practice with, some people that come from that lineage.
Oh, excellent. Okay. There's another famous individual I perhaps forgot to mention. There's Master Joe. Do you have any personal experiences with Master Joe as well? And have you practiced under his system, since we mentioned Master Jang?
Ah, man, Master Joe. Let's just say it like this. I could tell you some crazy stories about Master Joe, which, of course, I can't, unfortunately, do for a number of reasons. I mean, I can tell you privately, sure, but not in an interview like this. But again, and I'm not saying this to you, but in general speaking, you are interested in Master Joe and that kind of stuff, for your own benefit, join my course. Really, you will help yourself.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we could leave it at that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So there's not a whole lot of names that masters that I could think of within the Chinese field. We mentioned obviously. Perhaps I could ask this, since you mentioned Mr. Blair and John Chang and stuff. If you don't mind answering this question, what is your take on Mopai? I recently got to interview a wonderful gentleman named Mr. Gamadian, who trained under John Chang, and it was a great interview. And then I through that connection, I met a few people who are in touch with the Mopai people a little bit. Do you have any personal experiences possibly with the Mopai people?
Well, I mean, again, same story as for Master Joe, I don't want to talk about my relation with
Gotcha.
Mopai, right?
I understand. Yeah.
Mm, but I tell you something that maybe is more interesting, maybe for you and for the audience, which is like, look, throughout the years of living in Bali and in Indonesia, I have I've had at least two or three people coming to me, sometimes through Lawrence Blair, sometimes on their own somehow, who um, traveled, to Indonesia and managed successfully to connect and get involved with the Mopai, you know. So um, by saying this, I don't want to necessarily say that Mopai is an open school and they accept students like that. I don't want to say anything like that, but when you get out of your comfort zone and you go onto this quest, on this great adventure, yeah, sure, that is the outer manifestation of an inner process, right? So if I just give you the Mopai practice, that is one thing. But if you travel all the way across the world, not knowing where to go, what to do, what to look for, who to talk to, and you manage successfully, to eventually create that world for yourself. Well, then, if you then learn this practice, the effect will be very different.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that. I just want to just a thought is coming to me right now. Sometimes as a interviewer, I struggle a little bit with asking about these people because I know that the Nigong industry are a lot of masters want to keep things secretive, and which is up for a good reason, and so me as an interviewer, I struggle a little bit sometimes, like like how can I ask certain things in a way where I'm not offending people, or how can I ask certain things in a way where I'm respecting their privacy and stuff. And so like as much as I respect the Mopai people, or individuals like John Chang and others, masters like Master Jang, and I mentioned people like Master Joe and stuff. It's also very difficult for me because I know they want to keep a lot of things private, and there's a lot of personal information out there, and it's not like these people necessarily want to like openly advertise themselves and say, hey, like come see me, you know what I mean? Like, and so me as a public figure and like an interviewer, I struggle sometimes, like, man, how can I ask this question in a way that's like honest and authentic, and giving value to them, and but at the same time not really tapping too deeply into like personal information, so yeah, I just wanted to mention that to my audience, and to Igor as well. But I do want to say I have the utmost respect for all these individuals, and I think they're all fantastic. So yeah. So we're almost reaching the 2-hour mark. So Igor, I really wanted to ask you one more question. First of all, thank you for sharing all these amazing, wonderful stories. Like the one with the shaman was so cool. By the way, I mean, if you're up for it, Igor, maybe we could do another part 2, part 3, where you just where we just maybe, because we got to mostly hear your personal journey, but maybe we could do a part 2, part 3 where you just tell cool paranormal stories of different masters. Maybe we'll pick a topic or something like that in the future.
For sure.
Are you open
Sure.
for that? Yeah, that'll be amazing. I think, you know, I vibe with you, and I think you're a fantastic person. I can tell you're a very you know, good person. So I would like to definitely keep bringing you on. And I think my audience will love that. But I do want to ask this one last question just for today, since we're almost reaching the 2-hour mark. What is your ultimate goal in your personal spiritual quest? You know, within these lineages and like spiritual practices, they talk about the diamond body, the golden dragon body, the red phoenix body, the rainbow body. There's all these different, you know, the white light body. There's all these different milk white body. Like there's all these different terms out there for the body of light. Is that what you're personally after?
I think that, in my view, all that terminology of, you know, rainbow body and diamond body and whatever, to make it, you know, more, you know, to mention something that we already discussed before, I think, you know, it belongs to that category of mental masturbation. You know, you're just jerking off thinking about some rainbow body, but you know, in reality is, you know, sometimes it's like the word is not enough. And there was a philosopher who once wrote something in the lines of, I don't remember the exact citation, but something like, there is an empty space, you know, inside of your heart, and what can fill that space is God. Of course, God, the divine, whatever terminology you want to use, right? But you know, if you develop this incredibly difficult skill of going inside, of going in your heart, which is very hard. It's very hard to do. Then you will see, you will find that space that I just referred to. You know, so you have to stretch this heart. You have to make it big, and you have to open it, and all this love has to come out and has to manifest. And that is the hardest thing, you know, a man can do. So, you know, when you do, I don't know, when you go Qigong, meditation, you know, Nigong, whatever, you know, what do you normally do? You normally, you know, cross your legs, you know, and you keep your spine straight, and, you know, you put your head in a certain way, straight, hanging onto the heaven, and you meditate like that. Or, for example, in some traditions of mystical Christianity, for example, you know, you are not straight like that at all, but rather, you know, you drop your head. You drop your head to, you know, to look into your heart, and so you're like that, and then you try to go in, and that is really, really hard. If you can do that, that is something else. There is no need to think about a rainbow body when you are there.
Very cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Igor, and sharing all these wonderful stories. I really can tell you're a very sincere, you know, good guy, and I I really have a feeling that you're going to rub shoulders with a lot of these other, fantastic Qigong teachers out there soon. And, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm really truly honored that I got to be the first guy to kind of, expose you to the world. So thank you so much. Sorry, can you cut this part out? I'll cut this part. I really got to go to the restroom. I apologize. I'll edit this part. I really got to go to the restroom.
No, okay. Yeah, that's just.
I apologize. I've been honestly holding it in for so long, but I can't tolerate it anymore. So yeah, Igor, what is your what is your social media links called? And
just my name.
What is your
me, Kyle of Igor, which is my Instagram. Yeah, it's my and yeah, I guess my YouTube channel, I guess, is the same. I don't even know. I'm like the most anti-technological person ever. Yeah. I mean, you can my Instagram. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I'll just put all your social media links in the description so people can check it out. But more importantly than anything, the course that Igor is promoting. That's what I want people to check out. So, okay. Well, thank you so much once again for this interview, Igor. And like I said, maybe we can do a part 2 or part 3 where you share more of these cool stories. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Whenever you wish, yeah, we can do that. No worries at all.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Igor.
Thank you very much, Ken. Yeah, it was very nice to meet you, and thank you for having me. Yeah.